The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, for an effortless finish to your day. New Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
This is News Talk.
All right, you're welcome along. It is Thursdays Off the Ball. Nathan with you until 10 o'clock this evening. We've got a busy show ahead. The Shamrock Rovers defender Lee Gray is going to join us at 7:30. Bringing a brilliant week for Rovers, guaranteed place in the Europa Conference League and maybe even a spot in the Europa League, depending on how they get on against Ferencvaros over the next couple of weeks. Back in action against Derry City in the league tomorrow night. Then after 8 o'clock, we're going to talk to Ed McGreal about the Mayo hunt for a new football manager. A committee has been appointed. 4 star-studded lineups all battling it out to become the man who finally leads Mayo to the promised land. So we're going to get the latest on that. And then after 9 o'clock, John Giles will be with us. He'll be talking about the brilliance of Erling Haaland and the absolute mess that continues at Manchester United. 53106 is the text number. At Off the Ball if you want to get in touch with social media. We'll also be getting in touch with Stephen Doyle, who is out in Tallaght for St Patrick's Athletic against CSKA Sofia in their Europa Conference League qualifier. Of course, Pat's with the lead from last week, so we will check in with him in a few minutes as well. But Richie McCormack is with us. Evening, Richie.
Nathan, how are you?
I'm all right. Joe Molloy is there as well. Good evening, Joe.
Good evening, gentlemen. How you doing?
So, the Mayo manager, it's not going to be decided on social media. It's not going to be decided on social... Well, I think that is a waste of the Mayo madness. An absolute waste. So let's get a poll up right now on who the next Mayo manager is going to be. Go with people. Don't bother hijacking it. Don't try and screw us over. You had your chance. We want the right man to get the job. It is a star-studded selection that is going to be made over the next couple of weeks. We're going to talk about this after 8 o'clock. A reminder of those in contention. So first up, we got Kevin McStay.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's probably the favourite right now in his backroom team. Stephen Rochford, who got Mayo closer than anybody in the backroom team. Not even the main man. Just, chipping in when needs be. Donny Buckley. Everyone always says Donny Buckley. Yes, adds a lot to any ticket. Ex-Belmullet manager Damien Mulligan, and current Belmullet manager, and arguably the greatest Mayo man of all time, Lee McHale.
Tough to beat.
So next up then, we have Declan Shaw, Castlebar. He's going to be joined by Paddy Christie, Castlebar's Richie Feeney, Sligo's Desi Sloyne, and Mayo native Cormac Rowland. Not quite as high profile, but there might be something about that the Mayo County Board are attracted to.
And I did see Shaw did a big interview with the Mayo News on what I can bring to the job, so he's out there garnering publicity, building from the base.
Mike Solon, who has been in contention many times before. So Mike Solon's team includes Aidan O'Rourke, who was involved with Down last year, which he probably put down the CV a little bit, I would say, when he's presenting to the Mayo County Board. Eamon O'Hara, Sligo football legend, and former Mayo senior footballers Mark Ronaldson and Alan Murphy, who's a former Mayo footballer but also former manager of Galway United. So quite an interesting ticket. I'm sure Mike Solon will be able to call on his brother Barry as well on the strength and conditioning side. Led Mayo to All-Ireland glory at underage level, so definitely got to be in the mix as well. And we also have Ray Dempsey, who sort of fits the James Horan mould in many ways. Always felt like a similar footballer to James Horan in a lot of ways. Has a lot of success in Mayo at club level. So this is going to be decided. A committee has been put in place. They're going to meet over the next couple of weeks. And the problem Joe feels with having such high-profile nominees is that whoever gets it, it feels like it's going to be messy for those who miss out. You've been silenced.
Sorry, that's completely my fault. I'm muted. How so? Messy, how so?
Well, if you don't give it to Kevin McStay at this stage...
Yeah.
Like, you have such high-profile people. Like, how could Stephen Rochford get Mayo so close in 16 and 17, but now not be good enough to be part of a ticket to get the job? If Mike Solon doesn't get it, he's put together a stellar backroom team. He's had success at underage level. Well, what else do you need? Who are you giving it to, Joe?
It's very difficult. To be fair, I don't know very much about Shaw, for instance, or what he would say in an interview or the presentation he would make. And I presume these interview processes are increasingly going that way, where it is more than just a chat over a cup of tea in the local hotel. At a glance, there's something pretty stellar about the McStay ticket, you'd have to say.
That's box office.
it is box office and has a lot of experience and All-Ireland winning pedigree at club level in McStay and like McHale, and as you said, Rochford got Mayo playing some beautiful, brilliant football. So it's very box office. It's very strong. If you were in the county board and you were thinking, we don't want to take chances here, we want really, really, high-end, safe pair of hands, people who've been there and done it and know what it's about, that one's calling out to you.
The worry for them will be it's too box office, that they are almost too media savvy, too high profile. I heard you say, was it last week, about James Horan is probably holding his head in his hands going, this is the last thing that Mayo football needs is this sort of hype and conversation, that like the hype builds and builds and builds when you've got McStay, McHale and Rochford all on the one ticket.
It does, yeah, it does. Now, to be fair, what we were talking about was we expect like an imminent presidential debate between the candidates on Midwest. And then also, I think, like a, vice president where Rochford and McHale go up against Shaw's backroom team on a separate day on Midwest. Though that kind of a public process, which would, this thing was becoming more than any other county. You can't not give it to them because they're high profile, I don't think. I suspect they're savvy enough that they'll handle the media. McStay will actually, take a lot of the attention on him and do the interviews and let the players go off and do their thing. It'd be a weird reason not to give it to them. And let's be honest, you lads love the hype. You're mad for it.
Absolutely.
You're like Mayo mania.
That should be number one on the list of who's going to get us most excited about this, rather than anything else. And all of them are in that sort of more modern coaching setup where you do have the one person out front who will be a Kevin McStay, and behind that then is the actual coaching team, and McStay is the one who oversees everything and runs everything and does all the more administrative side of it. A lot of people feeling that actually this should be played out on TV in the style of The Apprentice. Who would play the role of Alan Sugar's at Text? Aidan O'Shea, Jimmy Sloan, Kevin Kilban?
Kilban, straight in.
Kilban,
that's a great shout. I mean, we have a long 6 months. If you're an inter-county fan, I mean, I know it's sacrilege to say that you prefer the inter-county game to the club, but if you are an inter-county fan, this is the kind of content you need to get you through the dark winter months. So, yeah. Like, I remember interviewing McStay last summer, or the summer before, one or the other. It's very hard to keep dates coherent in our heads, as we know at this stage, and he was adamant he was done. So upset with the way it went the last time. I am done. I will never go for it again. It just shows, doesn't it, when that reality presents itself again, how easy it is to get tempted.
Let's go to Tala, because Stephen Doyle is there. Huge night for St. Patrick's Athletic. They're taking on CSK Sofia, so we've already had success this week for Shamrock Rovers. Steve-O, I hear it's nearly a sellout in Tala tonight?
Yeah, good evening to you all. Jamie Moore, the press officer with St. Patrick's Athletic, reliably informed me that the East and West stand are both sold out, and I think they're 100 short of selling out the South stand as well. So we could be heading for about 7,000 people here in a very, very sunny Tala Stadium, and the pitch looks magnificent out there, as it always does. The Seskia team out there warming up on the pitch, the St. Pat's players just to my right hand side on the sideline, and the St. Pat's team, Nathan, showing no changes from last week's win in Sofia. Of course, Pat's winning that game by 1-0 thanks to a goal from the man off the bench, Serge Atakai, who they signed from SJK in Finland over the summer. He hasn't even started a league game yet for the Saints. The Seskia Sofia team showing 5 changes from the side that started last week. A couple of decent looking players there, just going through their team. A guy they brought in, Jonathan Lindset from Norwegian side Sarpsborg, seems to be a bit of an assist machine in Norway in the Elitserien there for the last couple of years. And then bring in Georgi Yomov, who's a right winger as well. Seems to be a decent player, can score goals off the wing. But good side, Seskia Sofia. Probably just maybe underestimated Pats a little bit. But as well, Nathan, you've watched a lot of the League of Ireland like myself. When Tim Clancy was in charge at Drogheda United, I remember going up to United Park many's a time, heading the game park I should say, and watching teams just being frustrated up there because he knows how to get a team to defend well and hit the other side on the counter attack, and I think that's what we're going to see a lot of here tonight. It's kicking off at 7:45. St. Patrick's Athletic. I'll just give you a run through their team actually. It's Anang in goal, Brockbank right back, Breslin left back, Gravosti and Redmond as the centre halves, O'Reilly, Lennon as the holding midfielders behind Cotter, Forrester, King and Doyle. They really need a good game from Chris Forrester tonight. When he really plays his best, he can be magic.
All right, great stuff, Steve-O. We'll be across to Stephen Doyle throughout the evening. What's the crack with Bulls, Richie? Are they boycotting Europe because they don't want to play in Tala?
Pretty much, yeah. We don't need it. We've got bigger and better things to concentrate on. We've got Jonathan Afolabi and Junior up front now. We're flying.
You're
We're
excited.
Going to be a powerhouse for next season for sure.
We've had some big nights with Sligo on Thursdays over the last couple of weeks. Unfortunately, well, it would be the greatest miracle in Irish football history if they could somehow turn it around this evening.
Yeah, greatest miracle in all of football history if they manage to turn this around this evening. They are 5-1 down, as we know, from the first leg against Viking. There's a 7 o'clock start at the showground, so there's 12 minutes played there. Still scoreless so far. John Russell making a host of changes for Sligo tonight. One of them enforced, of course, with a horrible injury to Gary Buckley, ruling him out until the start, possibly, of next season or indeed beyond. Nando Pineacre coming into defence for him. Greg Bulger and Robbie Burton come into midfield. Bulger captaining the side, and in attack, Max Mata and Frank Livac replace Aidan Keena and Carlos Sullivan. And on top of that, Republic of Ireland international Jamie McGrath has been included in the Dundee United starting 11 for their Conference League qualifier second leg away to AZ. It was his assist that led to the solitary goal that separates the sides. There's an 8 o'clock start to that one in Alkmaar this evening.
We've got Lee Grace coming up in about 20 minutes, the Shamrock Rovers defender, and interesting backstory. One of these who didn't have any underage career at all, a real late developer, went into the army, wasn't selected for regional teams, representative teams, any of that. Goes into the army, plays for the Defence Forces side, gets recommended down in Carrick-on-Shore to Shane Keegan, for a couple of other players in that area. Shane Keegan brings him into the League of Ireland with Wexford Youths, goes on to Galway, and then kicks on to Shamrock Rovers, where he's been, when fit, pretty much an ever-present over the last couple of seasons, and he's been brilliant this year. And he was making that point that comes up every so often with sports people, Joe. You know, he was told he was too small, didn't make the Kennedy Cup squad, felt he was good enough, but not big enough. Was born in December, and again, you look at that relative age effect, which we've spoken about in the show a few times, and how difficult and how insanely difficult it is. How it just doesn't make sense how players born in that final quarter of the year miss out on the opportunity for so long. And as he said, all those players that he played with, pretty much, that his mates that he hung around with that were being selected for these teams, like, most of them aren't even playing football anymore, never mind playing League of Ireland football, but that he missed out. And just reading again some of the statistics, and Emmett Malone had the story in the Irish Times from a few years ago, I think we had a debate about this at the time as well, and Laura Finnegan was on, who's doing a lot of work down in Waterford IT around football research as to the stats behind it. And she looked at the 2019 Under-17 European Championship, which took place in Ireland, and of the players that played in that, 57 of them were born in January, 3 of them were born in December.
Yeah, it's incredible. And there was a study done by a Swiss-based football organisation about a decade ago, and it was so widespread. They looked at the top 31 European leagues, the top 31, and that encompassed nearly 30,000 players. And again, very similar stats, very stark. So you have in the first quarter of the year, I think up to 23 weeks. Obviously, look, January's the bonus month. You're you're celebrating if you've got a January child, but the first 23 weeks seem to be very prominent. And of those 30,000 footballers in the European leagues, 30% came from that quarter, whereas only 19% in the top leagues came from the final quarter of the year. So it's stark, it's well established at all levels, and there's the occasional December baby. I mean, like our guest at 7:30, who perseveres and comes through, and they almost surprise everyone when they get to late teenage years or early 20s. And then I think we all know a couple of people who we played with who were, rarely on teams or really struggled, and somehow they had the resolve to turn up every week and go to training every week and be on the sidelines, which is miserable. Because I was of a generation where, and thinking back on it now, it's terrible really, but I was of a generation where there were often unused subs in our under 11s games and under 12s games,
I had this
away from home, driving
with lads that I played with in Ballyhonus, and we were talking about our under 13 under 14 team, and my dad was manager of the team, so somehow I used to squeeze in generally, but there were a couple of lads who used to come every week, and they just wouldn't get a game, and we'd be up in Achill. Achill's 2.5 hours on the bus, and nobody even thought anything about it. It was, you picked your best team and out you went, and these lads used to come every single week.
Listen, I've been there. I've been there. Lads, we're only 2-0 up. I can't bring you on. This kind of thing. But some of those would persevere. I think the majority would get fed up, understandably. Some of those would persevere, but then they could really blossom, in a way that would surprise you, because they have been up, in effect, training twice a week against people who would be, in effect, 11, sometimes 12 months older than them. But the vast, vast majority are lost, and it is that problem that we've talked about relative age effect before. It's not just I'm bigger than you and I grow in confidence. It's primarily I get picked in the team, so I'm accumulating all of this match experience, all of this practice. I'm generally on the best teams. I'm therefore getting the best coaching. And so what is, at the outset, a very small gap, which is 6 or 7 months bigger than you. Give that 4 or 5 years of the coaching and the game time, and suddenly that gap is just, it's unbreachable. You just can't make that up. And it's such a loss. And it's funny, the only country where it was an exception, those stats, was in England, in the study I mentioned. And that was purely because they did the cutoff point based on school dates. So it was September 1st instead of January, but the correlation stood. So,
which used to be the case in Ireland as well, because when they did a study on this of Irish players in the Premier League, initially it was actually the final third of the year, because it used to be when those players were coming through, August 31st was the cut-off date. So it was the players born September, October, November out of Ireland who had more chance of being successful. But obviously, since everything moved to the 1st of January, it's changed. Like, it is such a deep-rooted issue. Like, Belgium brought in a scenario for their underage teams where they had a second underage team made up solely of players born in the second half of the year so that they wouldn't lose them. But as you say, if you're born in December or November and you've had 4 or 5 years from under 8s, under 9s at every level where everyone's bigger than you, you're told they're bigger than you, all the attention is on them, just even the psychological impact that has on you and how you think of yourself compared to them, by the time it gets round to 15, 16, I wouldn't want to say it's irreparable, but it's very hard to overcome.
You can't make up the game time. Like, I'd be a huge advocate of splitting it up into 6-month age groups. Like, we've more than enough kids, we've more than enough volunteers, there's more than enough interest, sport is huge. And the reason to do it is not so we're like a better factory and we're producing more elite footballers. It's so that kids stick at it longer and enjoy it more, and you don't lose more to the game. Like, the one thing, like, there is, though, the players like Grace that do come through, those December players that do come through, like, it's that old thing of, like, the younger brother in the family is always the best because he's been playing against his older brothers in the garden and had to hold his own against much bigger types. So, like, if you can hang in there, you really can have an advantage from it. But in the main, the stats are overwhelming.
Well, Joe, I've just given you your first talking point for next Wednesday night with Michael Owen, who was born in December, but I should say maybe the England system was different, which is the reason he got in there.
That could be it, yeah, September.
Kylian Mbappe, also born in December. So it's not everybody. There's always going to be the few outliers, as people have pointed out, which was the book by Malcolm Gladwell that went into this in depth. But get your text in, 53106. Maybe it might come up with Michael Owen, maybe it won't. But he's going to be there at Vicar Street next Wednesday night alongside Ian Wright, Karen Carney, Emma Byrne. Joe's going to be there. Kathleen McNamee's going to be there. It's going to be a brilliant night. We'll bring you more info on that a little bit later on as well. You can get your tickets now, by the way, if you want, for that at otbsports.com/events. And a reminder that all the ticket proceeds from the night are going towards supporting Irish women's grassroots football. And on the night, we're also going to give away an amazing prize to one audience member of a trip to a Premier League game of your favourite club. Terms and conditions do apply. But get those tickets now on otbsports.com/events. The Newsround brought to you with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. There is golf taking place in Ireland this week, Richie.
Surely is, yeah. Leona Maguire just a shot off the lead after the opening day of the LPGA Tour's World Invitational in County Antrim. The Cavan golfer shot a 5-under round of 68 at Galgorm Castle this afternoon. American Amanda Doherty also played Galgorm today, and she heads the field on 6 under par. Stephanie Meadow played Masserine Golf Club, and she carded a disappointing 4-over round of 76.
Yeah, it's a really interesting event, this. So they've LPGA Ladies European Tour and Men's European Tour event both taking place this week up in Galgorm at the same time, and they swap courses, and Leona Maguire is obviously playing there, which is huge for the event as well. With Paul McGinley on Golf Weekly, and I know we always recommend Golf Weekly, but I would heartily recommend getting on to otbsports.com/Golf Weekly and subscribing, because he was brilliant. He hasn't been on the podcast for a while because McGinley is right in the heart of everything that's happening with LIV Golf. He is a board member with the European Tour, so he is sitting in on all of those conversations, and I think he just wanted to wait till he was fully on top of everything and these initial court cases were out of the way before he could speak about it. But Joey was brilliant this afternoon. He was very open on his, and gave as much as he possibly could on what's happened inside and the feeling of those on tour to players who are coming back, such as, you know, Richard Bland, not a big name, but playing this week on the European Tour despite taking the LIV cash last week, and also what he thinks might happen over the coming months.
Yeah, no, he was really good. I mean, he's just such a brilliant broadcaster now. That's what strikes you when you listen to him do these things as much as anything. And we pressed him. We're like, if you were in Henrik Stenson's position, would you take 40 million if you were the Ryder Cup captain? Come on, you would. 40 million. And in fairness to him, he was absolutely staunch that if he had signed a contract to be captain, he absolutely would not have broken it. The overriding thing, actually, I thought, which kind of came through in the conversation, it was very, very open. And yet, I don't know what you thought, but he was also acutely conscious of the fact that the European tour at large, and he's on the board, are heading for a courtroom. And things that are said publicly are being scrutinised by the opposition, and probably vice versa. And this whole thing now is like drowning in a kind of paranoia and suspicion, and watching each other very, very closely because they know they're heading to court. And even just this week, we saw in California in the Discovery, WhatsApp messages and text messages and emails, everything's out there.
Like, Richie, it's obviously, and we discussed it, it's massively divisive for golf and bad for golf. Just from a purely sporting point of view, like having the best players in the world split up and not seeing them play against each other on a regular basis. Like, part of me wants this to go all the way to court, because even the bits of juicy gossip we got on Monday night, that was one evening for about 2 hours, weeks and weeks in this, of Phil Mickelson's text messages, of Dustin Johnson's text messages. Oh my God, it is going to be glorious.
Yeah, but it's ugly at the same time as well. Like, I'm reading that book, The Dirtiest Race in History at the moment, about the 100 metres in Seoul in 88. And one of the characteristics of it was how Ben Johnson and Carl Lewis were kept apart for so long in the lead up to Seoul in 88, despite the fact that there was this simmering rivalry. So you never really had a really good gauge of who is the best against whom. And that's going to be a similar situation. I know you pointed out before that the majors are going to be almost added to, because they're, you know, the only occasions when these players will come together, as well as the JP McManus Pro-Am, I guess. But I don't know, it just takes away from sport is bad when it only peaks once every like few months. It needs to be consistent. You need to have like a league based thing whereby it's continuing on. Every week is meaningful. Every week means something. Not just, oh, this one's worth like 122 million euro, as opposed to this one being, you know, a piddly little 10 million euro. Who's going to watch that? It's not good. And I think it'll drive, ultimately this will drive people away from the sport in terms of viewerships. And I think that's what's going to bite, and it will bite eventually. And when that happens, it'll probably be too late for at least a couple of these tours to try and save themselves.
As an aside, that sounds like a very interesting book, by the way. I might nick it off you when you're finished with it.
Brilliant.
When they were all on the starting line, was it like a complete open secret? Like, were they looking across going, you know, I know what I'm doing, and we all know what each other's doing? Or would they have emerged slightly surprised? Hang on, were you all at it too?
No, I think that judging from, like, there was even people going back and forth between the camps in terms of people that were working in the background with Ben Johnson were suddenly like having chats with Carl Lewis, asking, hey, do you want a little bit of help from me? This is just in terms of people who were, there's this one Jack Scott who had this machine that helped athletes recover quicker. So he was going and talking between the two camps, obviously unbeknownst to the others. But like they all knew what they were at. There was a cohort of athletes that were working in the Ben Johnson camp that were all doing the same thing, and everybody kind of knew that Carl Lewis's positive had come from earlier on in 88, and was essentially covered up and was, you know, brushed aside as being basically wasn't done with the intent of doping. It was because he'd taken this supplement, and this is part of the supplement, so it wasn't intentional doping. But like they all knew what the other was at, and the US and the UK teams were training on top of each other ahead of Seoul, literally in the same complex. So yeah, but it's I can't recommend this book enough. The Dirtiest Race in History. It's the detail in it is phenomenal and is really, really evocative. But yeah.
All right, we'll have to do a book review over the coming months on that. Richie, what else you got with us? We're tied up in time.
Yeah, we'll go to the St. Jude. That is underway, the first stop on the FedEx Tour playoffs. Shane Lowry has started on the 10th. He has birdied his opening hole. He's one under par there. Conversely, Rory McIlroy started at the first, and he bogeyed his first, so he's one over. Seamus Power level par through his first two holes thus far this evening. And Olympic gold medalists Fintan McCarthy and Paul O'Donovan eased into the lightweight men's double sculls final at the European Rowing Championships today. They won their heat in Munich and will return for the final on Sunday morning. Also straight into their final, the women's four of Emer Lamb, Tara Hanlon, Afrik Keogh and Natalie Long. They finished more than 3 seconds clear of Denmark in their heat today. Sunita Pushpur and Zoe Hyde were third in their heat to progress to the semi-finals of the women's pair. And Margaret Kremen and Lydia Heafy were second in their heat of the lightweight women's doubles goals. They'll be back for tomorrow's repechage.
I'm never quite sure what to believe when it comes to Manchester United anymore, Richie, but some interesting transfer speculation this evening.
Oh, there certainly is. Paris Saint-Germain are hopeful of signing Marcus Rashford from Manchester United. According to L'Equipe, discussions are already underway with Rashford's representatives. New PSG head coach Christophe Galtier confirmed today that the club were trying to recruit another forward, and sporting director Luis Campos is actively in pursuit. Rashford has just entered the final year of his United contract, but they do have an option of a further year. So essentially, he's got 2 years left on that deal, and United would be in control, I guess, of the negotiations in terms of a fee.
Only one game in, Joe, but there was no signs on Sunday with a couple of misses that Marcus Rashford had that his confidence was coming back. 4 goals last season. And at the same time, while this feels like maybe a perfect situation for both clubs, with Manchester United, like, who do they replace him with?
Oh, they can't. Like they can't afford to let him go. I think that is a strange move. Yeah, dreadful form for a long time now. No sign of it returning. They've been watching him for the last year. And obviously they feel like, we can rehabilitate him and get some spark back and everything else. And like for United, he's one of the very few who've come through the academy, which does kind of count for something as well. They'd be loath to let him go. I don't know. Be interested to see what money they're offering for him. It feels like the Rashford thing's in real danger of just dissipating totally. So
he is still only 24. Like that's the only thing. Even I was surprised by that when I was doing my stats for the commentary last Sunday. That like he's still only 24. But like, those 2 misses he had on Sunday, like a top quality striker takes them. And even at his best, there was always questions about like was he going to get to that level where he'd be the 35 goal a season striker. But I've never seen a player's confidence so visibly shattered as Rashford's has been over the last 18 months. Looks like he'd rather be anywhere else.
Anywhere. And here, unfortunately, is where like what we can offer up meets a dead end because we just don't know. But it's been such an extraordinary decline and like such an evaporation of confidence. Who knows what's going on with him? It's been so stark. So. We don't know, but at the moment, there's no sign of a recovery. We can put it that way for sure, whatever the issue is.
I think the problem is he was born on the 31st of October.
That's a good month in England. That'll do you. That's why he came through.
He was at an unfair advantage, you see, at a young age, and now the late developers have caught up.
Maybe that's it.
That's it. All right.
Yeah, I don't know. Even his work rate, though. Like even whatever about the confidence and the missing the chances. Like he's had his hands on his hips for like a year. It feels like, and no one can seem to get that love of the game back from him.
Joe, great stuff as always.
Thanks, lads.
Richie, thank you.
Tom Dunn Show tonight at 10.
As always. All right, Richie McCormack. You literally cannot turn on your radio, and he is there wherever you go. All right, so we've got coming up League Race 7:30. We will have John Giles on the football show from 9 o'clock, looking back on the opening week of the Premier League season. And after 8, we are going to be talking about the next Mayo football manager and getting the latest with Ed McGreal from down there. But right now, time for the cash machine.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's Summer Cash Machine.
So 4